I'm Amanda Fox. Tonight's story is called Pool Boy. This one's about a lonely housewife who spends her days illustrating children's books, a pool guy who shows up every Friday, and weeks of stolen glances that lead to a steamy afternoon by the water. Let's begin. Summer. It was the reason that Joe and I had bought the place. From the 100-year-old oak tree in the front yard to the perennial gardens and stand of lilac bushes in the back, the lot was spectacular. Not to mention that it had an amazing in-ground swimming pool and outdoor kitchen. With only a few houses in the area, the 3,000-square-foot ranch sat on an acre lot and was the kind of property that rarely came up for sale. When it did, we jumped at the chance to buy it. We're going to need to hire a gardener and a pool guy, Joe had said. I don't have time to look after that stuff, and I'm sure it's not something you want to do either. I'll ask Ron and Sheila who they use, I said. Joe was right. I had neither the time nor the inclination to look after the yard. I only wanted to enjoy it. So when Nick first came to the house, I was out the back doing what I do best, lounging in the pool. "Excuse me, do you know where I can find Mrs. Sullivan?" he asked. "That's me," I said. I glided over to the ladder and climbed out, the sun warming my cinnamon-colored skin. "Would you mind passing me that towel?" I pointed to a large bath sheet I'd left on the deck chair, and when he did, I patted myself dry. Surveying the man in front of me, wearing a white t-shirt and well-worn cargo shorts, he didn't appear much older than our 20-year-old son, Sean. But as I looked closer, I could see faint wrinkles at the corners of his eyes and around his mouth. Probably in his early 30s, he had dirty blonde hair, an unshaven face, muscular legs, and broad shoulders. "Please call me Sophia," I said, twisting the excess water from my curly hair, darkening the patio stones at my feet. I held out my hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Sophia. My name is Nick." His grip was strong, but not overpowering. "Your husband asked me to come by. He said you'd be here." "I'm always here, Nick." I liked his name, among other things, and I worked from home. "What do you do?" he asked casually, assessing the surrounding property. "I illustrate children's picture books," I said, admiring his sea blue eyes and shapely lips. "Interesting. I can't draw, but I do write." He jotted a few things down in his notebook. "Really? What?" I asked. "I do some screenwriting. Can't you tell by the outfit?" He motioned to his clothes and smirked. I thought his outfit was nice, his shorts hanging at just the right level around his hips. "Any success?" I wondered what he looked like when he wasn't so carefully guarded. "I've had a few things published, but nothing big. Hence the reason I'm doing this," he laughed. "It'll happen. In this industry, you just need perseverance," I said. "It's true," he replied. There was an awkward silence after that, as we both just stood there staring at each other. Then, like he'd suddenly remembered why he'd come, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Just gotta take a few pictures so I can remember." "Yeah, sure." I turned to look for my flip-flops. "I was just about to have some lemonade. Would you like some?" "No thanks," he said. "I'll be on my way shortly." "Too bad," I sighed. "I mean, suit yourself." No doubt the man was gorgeous, like a younger and almost better-looking Brad Pitt. He had the same strong jaw and smoldering appeal. The summer was sure to be interesting. Over the next 8 weeks, Nick came to clean the pool every Friday after lunch, and when he did, I found it nearly impossible to focus on my work. While he measured and poured, skimmed and scrubbed, I sat and watched from behind my sunglasses. I thoroughly enjoyed Nick's presence, but I was terribly disappointed by the fact that he didn't seem interested in making a move. Down to earth and smart, he always kept things very professional. Every now and again, however, I'd catch him giving me the once-over, like when I'd sunbathe in my bikini, and he'd surreptitiously observe the contours of my body. One humid afternoon, as I reached for my drink, I got lucky and caught him in a direct stare. "Nick?" "Oh, sorry, Mrs. Sullivan. It's just that, well, you look so stunning in that bathing suit. White is the perfect color for you. It goes great with your skin tone." "Why, thank you, Nick." I gave my hair a toss and repositioned myself. I needed to get him to relax, to make a move, to do something about my starving libido. "Tell me, Nick, are you married?" Blatantly looking at me, I wondered if he'd given up on trying to be polite. "No," he said. "Girlfriend?" "Nope." Seemingly embarrassed, he began batting the skimming pole back and forth between his palms. "Guy friend?" I was praying he wasn't gay. "Nope," he answered plainly. I can't believe someone as nice and as attractive as you doesn't have a partner, or at least someone special. And like I meant to avoid getting tan lines, I undid the ties of my bikini top and tucked them in at the side. Nick observed me intently. "I was engaged once, but she left me about 2 years ago. She said I didn't make enough money to support her lifestyle." He made a quote sign with his fingers. "Ouch, that hurts." I laid back on my chair, rubbing over my collarbone. Breakups are no fun. "Yeah, I've steered clear of women ever since." "That's a shame," I said. "Someone as thoughtful as you deserves to be wanted." Waiting until he'd come around to my side of the pool, I then dared to remove my top fully, placing it slowly onto the ground, the afternoon sun hot on my chest. When I saw him looking, I asked, "Do you like what you see, Nick?" It was time to be bold, time to take charge, time to make a move. Nick's mouth was practically hanging open, and on his next step, he almost fell into the water. "You're a very attractive woman, Sophia," he mumbled. "Thank you, and you must know that I think you're a very handsome man," I smiled. "I wouldn't want to cause any trouble between you and your husband." He was so considerate. "Don't worry about Mr. Sullivan, Nick. He's gone a lot, and he likes it that way. I'm free to do whatever I want. Besides, he won't be home until next week." "It's really nice here," Nick said, motioning to the flowers and bushes, before refocusing his eyes back onto me. "The first time I came here, I thought this was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen." He paused. "And I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, too." "Oh, Nick, you don't have to sweet-talk me. I'm already interested." "No, but it's true," he said. "I'm glad you think so. Maybe if you came a little closer, you'd appreciate me even more." Nick seemed frozen in contemplation. After a few moments, however, he began padding slowly across the deck. "Are you sure it's okay?" he asked. "It's more than okay." Then, like he'd been waiting his whole life to do so, he reached out and pulled me close, our bodies so warm against each other. There was a sudden intensity in his presence. I could feel his heartbeat accelerating, his breathing changing. "Do you know how beautiful you are?" he said. "Just kiss me already." And then he did. His mouth found mine with a fire that had been building for weeks, and I felt everything else fall away. His hands moved to my face, gentle at first, then more certain. I could feel the restraint breaking, the careful control he'd maintained all summer finally shattering. "I've wanted to touch you since the day we met," he whispered against my mouth. The world narrowed. His hands, my skin, the sun warming us both. Everything felt like a question and an answer. I was completely open to what could happen, completely vulnerable, and instead of fear, I only felt want. "Oh, Sophia," he breathed, and there was something almost reverent in the way he said my name. The sensation of being desired like this, fiercely without reservation, was overwhelming. Months of anticipation, of stolen glances, of this slow burn finally igniting into something real and undeniable. When he finally pulled back, I could see the effort it was taking him to slow things down. "I like that," I said, exhaling blissfully, "but we're not done." Pulling playfully away, I was ready to explore every inch of this man. "Let's go for a swim." I wanted to know what his body felt like, wanted to dissolve into something weightless with him. "I promise it'll be fun." Quickly stepping out of my bottoms, I skipped over to the edge of the pool and dove into the deep end, swimming all the way to the other side, where I emerged a siren ready to be worshipped. "The water's great," I called out. Nick's eyes were bugging out of his head. "No suit, that's the rule," I said. "You made that rule up just now." "Doesn't make it any less of a rule," I replied. And with that, he laughed, the real kind, the kind that made him tip his head back. I liked that I could get that out of him. 3 weeks in, that careful, polite guy who used to ask permission for the littlest things had loosened into someone who'd argue with me about pool rules. Fine, but if a neighbor sees me streaking across your yard, I'm telling them you forced me. Nobody's going to see you, Nick, I replied. That's what all the pool rule makers say. I squeezed more water out of my hair. You coming or not? He was already unbuttoning his shorts, muttering something about how he couldn't believe he was doing this, and then he was in. It's very cold, Sophia. Big baby, I said. And with that, he reached me, stopping a foot away, suddenly a little more serious. Can I ask you something? He said. Depends. What is it? Why me? You could have been with anyone this summer. I sunk down into the water and leaned back, swirling my arms in big circles, looking up at the sky instead of him, because it was easier to answer that way. Because you asked me how my day was and actually wanted to hear the answer. First week you were here, nobody does that. That's it? I asked you about your day, he said. You also have the nicest legs and butt, but mostly the day thing, I smiled. He pulled me upright by the hand, carefully, like he wasn't sure he was allowed still, and for a second, neither of us said anything. The pool lights had come on without me noticing, the sky going that particular orange it only does right before it gives up and goes purple. I've been trying to figure out how to do this all summer, he said. Do what? This part, where I say something and it doesn't come out sounding like I rehearsed it in the truck, he answered. Did you rehearse it? I asked. Extensively, he replied. How's it going so far? Terribly, he said, but I'm going to say it anyway. He was quiet for a second. I like you, not in the way where I'd say that because I want something from you, in the way where I think about you when I'm working in somebody else's yard 3 towns over, and I'd rather be here just talking to you, hanging out, not even doing anything. I had no clever answer. I just kissed him again, and he made a small, surprised sound against my mouth, like he hadn't actually expected what he said to work. We swam for a bit more, splashing and playing like kids, the intensity shifting into something deeper. After about 15 minutes, we made our way back on deck, dripping and breathless. Ushering him over to the lounge chairs, I was delighted to have this gorgeous man beside me in all his glory, completely mine for the afternoon. Nick, I said, turning to look at him, all tanned and relaxed in the afternoon light. I really need you now. What do you need, Sophia? He asked. I need you to make me feel the way you have been, but more, like I'm the only one that matters. I've been wanting that too since the day we met, he said, moving closer. His focus was absolute, the kind of attention that made everything else disappear. When he leaned into me, I felt completely seen, completely known. Every movement felt intentional, every breath synchronized with mine. I felt claimed and cherished, worshipped even, in the way he looked at me, like I was the answer to some big question he'd been asking. Pulling me closer, his hands found me with surprising tenderness, and we held each other in the low light, just present. There was no distance between us now. Not physical, not emotional, nothing. We were tangled together, and the months of anticipation, of building connection, of learning each other, finally crystallized into something undeniable. The passion of it all increased, his breathing deepened, his entire focus narrowed to just me, to each individual moment, to each touch, to the absolute certainty of what we both felt. And when I urged him, without words, to let go of whatever he'd been holding back, he did, completely, without reservation. It was a kind of release, a breaking open, and I met him there, both of us shattered and remade in the same breath. When the intensity finally settled and we were still, Nick collapsed beside me, both of us breathing hard, completely undone by the weight of what had just passed between us. We remained there for several moments, bound together, his hand never leaving mine, connected in silence, completely spent. After we both stopped shaking, we lay on the chairs, talking and laughing. Eventually we got dressed, and I made us some food. We shared iced tea and club sandwiches like we'd been doing it for years. The ease between us was different now, more intimate, more real. We'd crossed some threshold together, and there was no going back to the way we were before. Later, we sat on the edge of the pool with our legs in the water, sharing one towel like idiots, and he told me about the house he wanted to buy someday, the one with the ugly detached garage he was convinced he could fix up into something. I told him he was the only person I knew who got excited about garages. He told me I hadn't seen this one. The bugs came out. We stayed anyway. It's like paradise here, Nick said, the evening waning peacefully. Paradise indeed, I agreed. For me, I knew it wasn't getting any better than Nick. If you loved this story but want even more heat, check out my books, Fantasies of a Married Woman, Volumes 1 and 2 on Amazon and Audible, link in the bio. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.